Hey everybody, welcome to Maker Monday. I'm Kris Bakke with Nasco Education, and I used to dread Mondays. Mondays are awful, right? You had the weekend and then there's all like, Mom, I got all this work to do. And now I get super excited about them because I got Maker Mondays. Hopefully you can sort of see in the background that we have some really cool blind contour drawing. In the handouts, we do actually have a lesson plan today. It is blind contouring with optical art lesson. It's a really cool way, and it sort of features gel pens, but quite honestly, you can do it with all kinds of stuff. This is a really great distance learning piece too. Even better than that, we have retired art educator and adjunct professor. I'm like, if you're a professor, you're a professor, but Karen's like, just get it right, Kris. At the University of Whitewater, Karen Crosby, and I jokingly say Karens get real bad reps. Karen is the real deal. And so I'm gonna get it turned right over because these go by so fast. But if you do wanna play along with us, you can grab a Sharpie and paper, and that's it. If you have a marker, if you have a pen, anything to do some drawing with, this will just give you a little bit of practice to go right along with it. And so, Karen, welcome. I'm super excited that you are here.
I'm excited to be here, Kris. Thank you.
I've actually learned a ton from you. So I'm going to switch you over to be the presenter, and you can tell us all you know about blind contouring. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I taught blind contour for every year for my 40-year career. It helps students to observe more. It allows them to draw more realistically, and it promotes that hand-eye coordination. And they're just fun. They're quirky and fun, and if you challenge your students and make a game out of the not looking at their drawing, they tend to buy into it more. So Kris suggested I demonstrate, and so that's what I'm going to do. We can do it together. I'm old school, so I will be taking my laptop and setting it in my homemade laptop holder, document camera. It is a card box, narrower than my laptop, and I simply cut notches out of the box. So I'm able to position the camera on my laptop so you can see my drawings. So things will wiggle, but you can still hear me, and then I will show you how I instructed students. So here we go. So first thing, you are starting with blind contour. I usually used this for the start of the drawing unit. I would move students, I would suggest that they adjust their stool so that they are not facing their paper. You need to move your paper to be an extension of your hand so that it's comfortable to draw with. Let me get this out of the way here. Once you've decided, once you've turned away from your paper, you position your hand, your opposite hand, in a comfortable pose, usually rested on your knee, and then tape your paper down. I usually soften up that stickiness on the clothing and tape the paper in the most comfortable position for you to draw and still not see the paper. Oftentimes I'd walk around and help students move their stools so that they could not see their drawing out of the corner of their eye. Then the first thing that we do, you can't quite see it, but in the upper right-hand corner, we put the name and the date, and switch to a permanent marker. Anything we drew with was anything that could resist anything wet if we went back into the picture. So I invite you to set up your paper. I'm going to begin by looking at my model, my left hand, and I would have students determine the route they were going to take. Looking at every wrinkle and crinkle and freckle and scar that they might have on their hand. It would always help if they had a long sleeves, because if we start up at the elbow, you're able to get the wrinkles and the folds of the fabric to give you a little variation. And so I also tell students that because I'm right-handed, I tend to go off to the right when I draw. And so I reposition the paper just a little bit so I don't go off the edge. So I've mapped out my wrinkles and I begin, once you put your marker down, you don't lift up, you keep going. The challenge is to not worry about what the finished product looks like. You are simply observing what you see, and that translates into your opposite hand and hopefully onto the paper. So don't lift up your marker, you lose your place. If you do lift it up, put it right back down where it is and continue on. So I am starting. I'm following along the contour of my arm and my wrist. I'm drawing very slow. I want to go as slow as I'm looking at the lines on my model hand. And follow it on up, looking for all the important lines that define the object that you're drawing. You'll be eliminating some, perhaps over exaggerating others. Figuring out how I can draw something and continue on. Now slow down a little bit if you're drawing too fast. I'm only on a second finger. Keep it slow. It's all right if you overlap other lines. Your eye will be able to decipher that. Slow it down. Keep that marker on the paper. And now my little finger, if you can see, my little finger is used as a guide to find that edge of the paper. So I'm in a little quandary here. It looks like I'm getting awfully close to the edge. Students would stop drawing when they got to an edge. And jump back on when they found paper again. And I'm officially done. I've drawn right off the edge of my paper. And so you could have them go back on or not. Removing the tape from the paper outward to prevent rips. And here's my sample. You can see things are abstracted quite a bit. No thumb, and that's okay. And so then once students have finished this, you put a number 1 on the paper, and then you switch to a second piece of paper and name, date, number 2, and we would do blind contours again. They would reposition their hand into another pose, and we would do a blind contour drawing again. Again, very slowly, and once they finished, we would repeat again until we would draw a full 45 minutes of creating just blind contour drawings like this. And that out of those drawings then, we would do different techniques to them. Since we use permanent marker, now this one is just a plain permanent marker drawing. Once we felt comfortable with the permanent markers, we would move to doing portraits. This one is with a black crayon, coloring in with marker and crayon. And here's a student example that it's pretty difficult to see. Once the blind contour started to work into a combination of regular contour and blind contour. While they're doing their blind contour, they could glance once or twice just to see where they were, how they were doing. This group of students really enjoyed the contour drawing. This one is done in pencil, but I invited a policeman one class period, my football playing nephew in college came, and this student did a combination blind, regular contour drawing, including his name in contour. And this got wet apparently at some point. And then when you switch to regular contour, you can set up still lives and do whatever assignment you would care to. Middle school, this was a combination contour, blind contour and regular contour with chalk or pastel, and then the middle school students went back into it to give it a finished look. This is a lesson from school arts or arts and activities. They looked fantastic when they were hung on a wall. They were just right there in your face, so large and bold. And Alexander Calder has some lovely little drawings that look as if they're contour drawings to be changed perhaps into wire sculptures. So he would be a art history connection for you. And so finally, I guess we don't need this. Here is a little accordion book that is telling you how to do blind contour drawings with some of my drawings and with hand cut stencils using a stamp pad. So you can dream up whatever lesson that you need to do in your curriculum and apply it as you see fit. So, Kris, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I have a couple. First, and I'm trying to get I moved my question box and now I can't move it back. First, thank you. I'm loving this. I don't know if you can see very well, but that was where I love the idea that you do a number 1 and a number 2 and a number 3 and keep doing it, because every time I get better at it, but it's amazing how I'll be following along and then I'm like, ooh, I missed that wrinkle. Ooh, I missed that. So the whole studying your hand, I think, is really good.
It helps the progression in your drawings, the improvement. The more it's like practicing piano. The more you practice, the better at it you get.
Yes, absolutely. I can feel the music happening. So questions are, yes, what age would you start introducing contour drawing to?
I usually did this with 5th graders. I do believe once or twice I tried it with 4th graders, but 5th grade was my target range. It seemed to be most successful.
I got to come a little closer to my screen. Do you teach other contour drawings such as continuous and cross contour first for confidence building, or do you find going blind first?
I usually do blind first. Maybe it's because it's my favorite, but that's the way I did it.
So it's a preference. Excuse me.
It is in my case, yes.
Gotcha. Because that was another question. Is it best to start with blind, with lower grades, or regular? And preference is what you say.
I think so.
The artist that does the wire sculpture is Alexander Calder, right?
Yes, the mobile.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also known for like some mobiles as well.
Yep. He's known for his.
Another question was, how do you get your students to slow down is the question.
Well, I would get them all set up. I would walk around and double check to make sure they couldn't see their paper, help them to move, to turn their body away more. As I walked around while they were drawing, I would begin to talk slower. I would be in proximity to people that were racing in their drawings, and I would remind them to slow down. The first couple of drawings usually were faster. You know, they're racing to get done. But as you do 5 or 6 or 7 of these drawings, and you continuously remind them in a non-aggravating way to just slow down. Keep your pencil going as slow as your eyes are moving around your object.
Oh,
And
yes. I loved that tip completely. And I got to show you, like sometimes I'm in the perfect job because I don't have an art education background. And I really began learning my art skills here at Nasco because I didn't think I was an artist when I was young. And then I met, you know, roughly 90,000 art teachers who said, of course you're an artist. And so now I try. But I swear to you, I make every mistake that your elementary and middle school students will make, which is, and my light might be too bright on this, but this was a blind contour that I did it too fast, and I wasn't watching, and I didn't study my path, and I didn't do the wrinkles. I can't tell you that, you know, we have these teacher lesson plans for teachers to teach. This particular lesson plan is also going to be turned into what we call a project guide. And we've been creating project guides to help students or to help teachers give a student a tool, especially in a distance learning situation. And so we're hoping that should probably come out in the next maybe 2 to 4 weeks. We keep our creative team super busy, but all of those are housed on our K to Career resource center called Nasco Educate. Hold on, we're having a little technical difficulties. All right. Sorry about that. So first, there's a lesson plan that is in your handouts, and this lesson plan will be turned into a project guide. So there's always going to be the teacher lesson plan, and this lesson plan is available on both Nasco Educate, our K to Career platform. If you're interested in a free trial, which is known as a frial. Oh, I'm sorry, I find myself hilarious. But if you're interested in a free trial of Nasco Educate, let me know. Either respond to this, to the follow-up email, or to me, kbakke@nascoeducation.com. The other thing that I wanted to show you was when you do it too fast, and I laughed my head off because this couldn't be any more elementary because all I did was go around the perimeter of my whole hand. And somehow I thought all those nooks and crannies were going to show up. What? So I love the fact that you can take this video, which will come to you at the in about an hour after the session. You'll get a follow-up email that has a survey and that has the PD attached to it. It also has the handout in it, and then it will also have the video. And if you save that video, you can share the portion of Karen demonstrating with your students. Another question, Karen, is what do you always choose an 18 by 24 when you're doing it?
I always did, and I always used white sulfite drawing paper because you wanted their best work to continue on to whatever part you were adding to the project. If you were coloring it in with markers or if you were painting over it with watercolor paint. So I splurged on the multiple pieces of paper, and then sometimes used you know, 1 or 2 of them with different materials like watercolor paint, or as I said, to make it look like a finished work of art.
Oh, and it really does. And, you know, you can sort of see in the background the few pieces that we had. They are the pieces that we're taking off of the lesson plan. And in this particular lesson plan, the second part of the lesson, after you've blind contoured, is to add optical illusion behind there. I have one. It's kind of lame, so don't judge too harshly. My optical illusion, I should have probably continued to do my pattern a little bit better. Yeah, once again, probably too big of a hurry, but honestly, it turned the piece from just being kind of boring, fun
Really?
but boring, into something that really pops and is really cool. So this one we used also with Sakura Jelly Roll gel pens. They're fantastic. This one just happens to be a white one, but they're fantastic just because they're a little more expensive, but they have that, oh, what's the word that I'm looking? It's like they're manufactured and their tip has that roll. And so you end up using all of the ink. It doesn't like puddle or get gooey. And so it really lends itself to a blind contour drawing because you're able to continue to, you know, move on your paper as well. Another question is, how did you keep your students engaged for the full 45 minutes? Part of it is they're doing more than one piece, right?
Right. They're doing, you know, up to 5 or 6 drawings in the class time. So there's 5 minutes of demonstration, 5 minutes of cleanup, and then the rest of the time is drawing. And each drawing, you're slowing them down, so that takes a little time. Students are sharing with their neighbors and they're giggling at them because all of a sudden their drawings are looking like witches' hands or disfigured hands, and they look funny, and you get them back on track with the next drawing, and they settle down, and they figured out that they can't talk so much if they're concentrating and looking, if they're observing what they're drawing. So you know when they're done because then the giggling starts. And then the more we do this, you know, if we do it a second class period, they become more serious about it. They can see their own improvement. And then the optical art, they really enjoyed learning how to do that. So,
Yeah. And it does add a really cool effect to it. Suggestion too is having students do the blind contouring in sketchbooks. You know, do it in their sketchbook. And then once they've sort of gotten the idea and you know, to say to perfect it, you know, is weird because how do you perfect, you know, a weird drawing, except for the fact that I get it because you've gone from less detail to more detail, and it does take on that look. I think it's a super fun way to sort of level the playing field out too, because I don't draw well, and so even though mine looks creepy, it still looks good, and that makes me feel good. So I think that has a really good opportunity for everybody. Another question is, how do you choose objects? Particularly, it says, what objects work best with blind contour? How do you do this with objects with lots of detail in the middle as opposed to the edges?
In the middle opposed to the edges. I've done it multiple ways. I've set up a still life in the middle that everyone looks at from their angle where they're sitting at their table. I've also put a multitude of items in the middle of the table, and I'm using things from the classroom, you know, glue bottles and paintbrushes, and then things that our teachers bring in for still lives. I had a teapot, I had a cow skull, and then I also got to the point where I let the students choose. They would just get up and draw what they want. And another time they brought in toys. That was another
Oh, fun.
motivator to keep them engaged. So
How about the question, how do you, any pointers on moving into like a longer drawing without losing the complexity and ease?
say that one more time, Kris.
Any pointers on moving into longer drawings without losing the complexity and ease?
If you're referring to blind contour, usually we were restricted to like the 40 minutes that we were drawing in blind. Once you move on from blind, where you start combining, I call it regular contour, where you're able to glance at your paper, we would make a game out of it. Okay, this time, this drawing will be 2 minutes long, and you're able to glance at your paper 3 times. And so that's their challenge, to continue with the blind contour, but then with the addition of being able to look at where they're positioned on their paper and how they're doing and moving around, to the point where you move to doing regular contour drawing, where they are able to look at the still life, but also able to see their piece of paper at the same time. And if someone's starting to have difficulty, I would just mention, go back into full blind contour mode then, and
Right.
and work yourself out of whatever dilemma they felt they were in. And so,
Which it's so funny because you for sure answered the next question, was at what point do you tell students you can take a look at your paper quickly, or do you try to avoid that? So you started with blind, but then you did some other drills where you gave them that opportunity. That was perfect.
gradually work into full on looking at their drawing.
Another question was, how did you get the students to draw their hands so big? Did you have to talk about like, okay, your paper's big, so you're going to
Right.
draw
Right.
big?
A lot of it is, you know, as I was walking around, I could see what they were doing. And if they were drawing tiny, you know, like 1.5 inches to 2 inches tall, I would, depending how far they were in the drawing, I would, you know, just whisper to them as I walked by that they needed to increase it in size. And then when they started their second drawing, I would remind students that, okay, now your last one might have been a little small. We need it bigger. You have a large piece of paper. And you also, I told students, your hand kind of developed this muscle memory. You can feel how far your marker is going when your hand is sitting in one spot. And so they responded well to things like that, as
Very
well
good.
as that little finger judging where you were on the paper before you drew all over the table.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting because I would imagine, I would think in a learning situation, you would start smaller than bigger, but that might be just the individual too. I feel like I went smaller, and then the more comfortable I got, the bigger I got. The other thing that so a couple things that I've thought of since in that whole thing is, first of all, this is a great distance learning. Kids can do this at home because, utilizing a hand or their setup of a little still life or something like that, paper and pen, great. But it still takes me back to the need for the art educator. And I know that this group is like preaching to the choir. So, take this clip and show it to your administrator. But we all know that if you just say, hey, do this lesson plan, you may end up with, just the outline of somebody's hand. But when you have a teacher that talks about the tips of going slow and studying your hand and looking for this and all those tips that you have given us, I think that is the magic that teaches us art that you all have. And so that's just my momentary kudos to art teachers, because that's how I've learned art. And so the value of that is so important. And I'll tell you right now, if you are engrossed in, math or science or other homework, and you take a break to do this blind contouring, it clears your mind and it helps us. And also too, you take the science of learning anatomy and you add it to blind contouring. You take the math of proportion and you add it to blind contouring. So I just love the fact that all of these things can be incorporated into that at-home learning. There's more questions. Are there do you know some contemporary contour artists? You talked about Alexander Calder. Do you know any others?
I currently do not. And I
don't either. I liked the example of his because then he turned it into 3D. And I think that's cool because, like those twisties wires that are like a little coated wire, they're relatively inexpensive too. That's something that, if you're doing sort of the blended learning of in school one day and distance learning another day, you might be able to hand out some of those wires and then they take their blind contour and try to create. What will this type of drawing work for teaching will this type of drawing work for teaching online students? Yeah, it definitely does. Did you do it online with your college students?
I did once this last semester when all of a sudden we were online, and it did work. I adjusted the camera like I did with you, and they drew on what paper they had with whatever materials they had. I teased them that they could go out and build a fire and using little sticks and make their own charcoal and do a drawing with that. And
but right, almost everybody does have a pen. Almost everybody has some sort of junk mail. I mean, and even if you're going over words, if you have a Sharpie, it will show up and it'll look cool, and that'll just give it that much character. Hopefully, and this is a little bit of a shameless plug, but we are NASCO, we do this for a living. Hopefully you can talk about kits. And this one is a really hard used kit, because when we originally when all of you went online and didn't have supplies, there were some school districts that said, can we just get some kits and get them in something as simple as a zippered bag. And so there was watercolors and a glue stick and a pencil, and you could do blind contour drawing with a crayon.
Oh, easily. That's what.
In fact, the thing that the thing that Karen said to me, and again, I think it works really well distance learning because you need that art teacher, is utilizing something that somebody can't erase with.
Mhm.
So, oh, and speaking of distance learning, show your box, your little box creation for your laptop again.
Okay.
Lots of people were curious how you did it. So just took a
Okay.
box and
I took a box that was narrower than my laptop. This is a A2 envelope box came in there. You can see that. And so I started smaller and it wasn't enough. So I went a little deeper and went ahead and cut it out. Used that piece that I cut out to trace the matching side. I put this little notch in there. That's where the computer sits so it doesn't move. And my laptop is pretty light. It worked fairly well.
yeah, it totally did. And I giggled because, you know, a couple people were like, oh, that's genius. And it just reminded me, like, that is super classic Karen Crosby. Karen Crosby actually is from Wisconsin and taught here in Fort Atkinson where Nasco is. And she has worked with Nasco longer than I have worked with Nasco. And so I've got to use her as a consultant and my art teacher for many, many years. And I can't tell you how many things I think of when I'm doing a piece of art that I hear Karen's voice. And so she's sort of the queen of invention as well. Several of her ideas have even made it into our catalog as products, which is so cool. Karen, do you typically do this as just a one-off lesson, or is it in a unit?
I start drawing units with it and progress to other types of drawing. But why I like to start with the blind contour is it slows kids down and it makes them observe more. They're able to do more realistic drawings by their practice of observing beforehand. And then
Very
from
good. We had a couple people comment that you could tie in Picasso.
Oh.
Apparently Andy Warhol did a lot of things, a lot of contour line drawings as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's everybody's homework though, is to find who those contemporary contour drawing artists are. Devin, oh my gosh, I know him so well and my brain has completely gone Calvert. Devin Calvert is an art teacher in Wisconsin who has a YouTube channel that often talks about contemporary artists. And so, and I'm pretty sure his YouTube channel is just Devin Calvert. You should go on there and challenge Devin. And I'm busting a gut because I know him well enough that I can put that challenge out there and he would kill me for it, but it'll be awesome. He's currently the Wisconsin Art Education Association president, so he can take it. The handout list 9 by 12, is that the size? Is that size just as good, or do you start big and go smaller, or the other way around?
It's up to you. The 9 by 12 was because we were using such a fine gel pen. It can be any size you want. It's up to you and the lesson you're creating.
I will, yep, and I will tell you the really cool part about this is this can lend itself to finishing it in a day, you know, especially if you're in a distance learning situation, a student could create this in a day. I think mine took a few hours. I'm really challenged with a ruler, I'm not gonna lie. But that's the nice part about a smaller piece of paper too. So Joanna, she posted www.iansklarski.com. It's a link to contemporary contour artist Ian Skylarski. Thank you for that. That is so kind of you. I appreciate that. Couple other cool ideas that either people has posted or Karen has done. I think it was Glenda that posted that she has the student, and in case you're wondering, this is me using 2 brushes at a time, painted abstract. They used watercolor and painted an abstract background and then did their blind contouring on top of that. So they did the background first and the contouring on top. I like that idea a lot. This one right here, wrong side, this one right here, if you can't see it very well, it is actually a blind contour of holding a cell phone. And so that makes it a little bit more contemporary. But Karen and I were chatting, I'm thinking too, like you could take a selfie, click, and then just blind contour looking at your selfie. I think that would be way fun, particularly if it wasn't me, because that blind contour is going to be scarier than my hand. Karen, will you please hold up a few of your examples one more time? We did have a couple people come in a little bit later, and all of them are just fabulous, and it just is a nice little recap and reminder as well.
All right, I can do that. Here is just permanent black marker. We have the drawing from class, or from this webinar, where I managed to get extremely large.
Today was the first time I ever blind contoured fingernails. So that's what I learned from my mistake.
Progress. So this is not a self-portrait. I think I was encouraging students to draw people across the table. But this is with crayon and marker.
So cool.
We also had these double-sided mirrors that students could share and use.
Yes.
And then putting together a still life.
That one is that one real contour? That didn't look blind.
It's more regular contour.
Okay, so maybe looking.
I'm out of order. This one, this is done in pencil, combination blind and regular, and we had models come in. School policeman, my nephew. Let's see, this one. Oh, I found one this large.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, that
just shows 2 sort of levels that you go. I mean, because like I said, I tend to be a little bit more of a beginner. And so I felt pretty proud when I could handle this. But as you learn skill and technique, you then can add that shading and all the other interesting things in it as well.
And that was the 7th grade that did the large hands. And
oh, wow.
College,
wow, that's amazing.
The books, so.
Yes. So Karen Crosby is a little on the little, what I call old school, doesn't, and I'll be honest with you, she's not somebody that would ever promote herself, but she's always willing to teach and to help and to do something like this. So if you ever would like Karen to do a workshop for your school district or or, you know, even if you have questions, by all means, feel free to send me an email. I would be more than happy to connect. I hate to give her personal email out over a webinar because, you know, we don't want thousands of people being like, hey, where'd you get that blouse? You know, she would be spending all her days answering emails, but I'm more than happy to make that connection. And when she showed that book, that's another strength of hers. She's a printmaker. She's a bookmaker. She does marbling. She doesn't have a website because that's just not who she is, but lots and lots of experience. And, you know, truly, I always tease her because she's super conservative for an art teacher. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like the most conservative art teacher I know. But her knowledge and her ability to teach from a kindergarten level all the way to a collegiate level is amazing. Another question was not about this one, but I'm glad you brought this up, Catherine, is if you haven't watched the if this is your first Maker Monday, or if you have not watched any of the other ones and you want to watch them, NASCO has a new platform called Nasco Educate. It is a K-to-career resource center that houses lots of information. And the idea is to have a place that teachers can go for some, like for a learning management system. We have some paid programs on there, some paid curriculum on there, that if your school is part of STEM Fuse or Knowledge Hook, some math, STEM, STEAM curriculum, it's the go-to for that. In the art world, we are working on some curriculum, and we also have lesson plans, we have project guides, we have videos. All of these professional development and webinars are housed on NASCO Educate. We are more than happy to give you a free trial period so that you can see, you know, what's in it for you and what you'd like. It's relatively new, and already since January, it has continued to grow and continued to improve. So I'm really, really excited about it. That is one way. Another way is when you get the email, if you are on NASCO's email list, and we will send you an email from here. And, you know, as long as you choose to continue to get the emails, you'll always get an email about a live webinar. And then an hour from now, you will get a follow-up email that has a PD certificate included. It has the recorded webinar in it. We always advertise the next Maker Monday. So that's another way. You know, you can always send me an email. I'm Kris Bakke, and I'm at kbakke@nascoeducation.com. We want to continue to help you in any way that we can. And so by building the NASCO Educate library of professional development, we hope that it does help you. So with that, I will talk a little bit about next week. It's Maker Monday, but we won't be doing any actual making because I got to tell you, I'm excited. Lisa Herkler is an art educator from New Jersey. And last year at the Art Educators of New Jersey conference, I was able to do a couple workshops. And I usually don't get that chance because I'm usually at the booth, but there was a couple of us there. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go to this workshop. And it was called the Social Justice Book Club. Awesome. I seriously feel like it was life-changing in terms of what Lisa did with a request from students and with the art curriculum, and combined them together in some controversial type books that might have parents or administration questioning. And so please come to that. You know, if you have a reading teacher or a classroom teacher, middle school, high school, bring them. It might not be elementary appropriate, but it's still cool to come and listen to see how she took what she wanted to do. And I think you could probably do it on an elementary level. It might not be called social justice book club, but a book club that ties into your curriculum. So I would encourage you to come back for that next week. What else? I told you about the PD that comes with, so you download the PD when your email comes. And if you have any questions about today's session or want to get in contact with Karen Crosby, again, email me. Karen, I just want to say thank you so much for the time that you have spent with me today, but for all the times that you've spent with me. I feel like the growth I've had as an artist it really is a lot to your credit, because you were the closest art teacher I had and always available for me to ask questions to. In fact, I applaud all of you out there, because that is how I learn. And if I learn in a remote sort of way from all of you that are across the country, I know distance learning in art will work as well. And I thank you guys for carrying our country in terms of the creativity that we've needed to draw on to help us, emotionally and spiritually, and just to calm us down and to get us through, and to create something and share it with somebody and hang it in our windows and giving it, like I just did some watercolor flowers and talk about blind contour. I was actually looking at the paper and they're still a little bit janky, but I know that when I deliver them to the nursing home that they're going to make people happy. And so that's exactly what you do. Karen, any final thoughts? I just want to say thank you so much.
Well, just keep drawing and let slow those kids down by walking around and being in close proximity.
Absolutely. It was a great lesson. We're going to close a few minutes early. You'll all be happy to get a few minutes of your life back. I can't thank you enough for joining us each week. Be well, stay healthy, be happy, and keep teaching art.